Okay, now the spine line, which is also called the head line, reveals the health of your spine, and it'll show if you have problems with vertebrae or discs in your back. It will show if they are subluxated, and what this means is they're turned out of place or they could be damaged, or you could have a condition such as scoliosis or a twisting of the spine. It starts right there between the thumb and index finger, or the Jupiter finger, and travels across the palm just under the Mercury finger. Now, pull up your spine chart. It's called the Chart of Effects of Spinal Misalignment, and that section underneath the index finger, if you're on your spine line underneath the Jupiter finger, that represents your cervical spine, kind of that neck area, that 1C to 7C, and it goes down to what's called the Dowager's Hump. This is the hump that you see in older folks when they're walking around and they're kind of bent over there at the neck, just under the bottom of the neck and the top of the back. That's where your cervical spine is. Then the area just underneath that Saturn or that middle finger is your thoracic spine. This is your 1T down to your 12T. That's the back that goes all the way down to your waist. Then there's that area underneath the sun finger or the ring finger, and that's your lumbar area. This is 1L to 5L. This is kind of your waist and your hips. Then, of course, you go down to your sacrum and your coccyx to the tailbone, which is underneath that little or that Mercury finger. Let me tell you a little bit about Kat has a master's degree in health education, and when she was going to college, she was developing her craft in hand analysis, and she came across a book from a longtime doctor, Dr. Eugene Scheinman, and he talked about how your spinal health absolutely shows in your hands, and working with Kat over the years, it's proven to be very real and accurate. And I always get a little chuckle when I hear back on some of the past clients that have taken their charts to their chiropractor or their physical therapist and having an evaluation, and the medical care provider was amazed how spot on the charts were. Okay, let's look at your chart. If you look over there on the left-hand side of your chart, you'll see an image of a spine. And we're going to start right at the very top part of that image. There's a couple of, if you pull up your spine chart, you'll see where we have that marked. And then on that hand image, on that right hand image, you'll see the little triangles. They're in yellow, and they go along that head line. And what this does is it shows when you have some issues with those vertebrae or discs. Let's see. Oh, you didn't say if you had any damage in that spine or not. But they're definitely turned out of place or misaligned. So it looks like, and we're going to start right at the very top of the image. From 1C down to 3C, looks like you've got some issues there, kind of from the very top down to the middle of that neck. And then that 6C right at the very bottom of the neck. And then that 1T down to the 6T. That's kind of that upper part of that middle back. Looks like you've got some issues there. And then the 7T down to the 10T. There's something going on there. And then down in that hip region, that 1L down to the 4L. And a lot of times when you've got that turned out in the top part of your back, it'll turn that bottom part out in the opposite direction to compensate for balance when you sit and stand. And then if you go over to the right, you'll see the areas column, and that'll show you the parts of the body that are affected when you've got some issues in that spine. And of course the effects all the way over to the right will show you what kind of symptoms you can have. And I know that we had looked in that heart line, we'd seen a little bit of stress there. When that 2T is out of place, and this sits just below that middle finger, that Saturn finger, that can put a little bit of pressure on that heart. Makes it work a little bit harder than it needs to. And then we talked about a little bit of anxiety and depression down on the very end. That sits down there below that ring finger on that right hand, the little triangles that we have there. And that shows when you have that 1C out of place, especially when you have that 1C and 2T out of place at the same time. That really gets anxiety going. And then we see in your information you talked about having a little bit of adrenal fatigue. Boy, when that 9T is out of place too, that puts pressure on that spinal cord and can cause interruption in the signal getting through there fully. So you can look around the chart here and see if you have any of the other symptoms. And I'll tell you what we usually suggest when we see this is to get into a good chiropractor, or even better yet, a good physical therapist. See if they can get that realigned, get that energy flowing correctly down through that spine. Especially where you have that 1 and 2C out of place, you want to find somebody that knows craniosacral work. And what they'll do is they'll go into the roof of the mouth and they'll either massage or adjust those little plates. And that helps release that energy flow to get down through that spine correctly. We find a lot of times that when people get those realigned, that they just have a lot more energy, a lot more ambition, and they just feel a lot better during the day. So that's something to consider. And I've seen many of Kat's clients and people she's done readings for, they'll take these charts down and show it to their doctors, and it's kind of a funny story how people will come back and their doctors are just amazed how accurate these spine charts are.